So we're here to solve this skyscraper Sudoku called Tau Cross by John Bulten. I'll spare you the details in this video, but if you go back to our March 14th anti-pi Sudoku video, there's some discussion about pi, or really 2 pi versus tau as the more natural constant, and tau is 2 pi, the value 6.2831853, etc. at the top of the puzzle is the form of tau, which may be a more natural constant for a set of formulas than pi on its own, which often gets 2 pi as a factor used there. Anyway, to solve this puzzle, we're going to do some of the common things you do in a skyscrapers anyway. We've got a small digit 1 and 2 large digit 8s, which sort of force where the 9s go in these spaces. That means that the 9 that's remaining in the 7th row is going to be all the way in the left box, because we've also got a Sudoku constraint in this grid. Unlike the earlier puzzles in this week, there were only skyscrapers. Besides putting in things like those 9s, and there's some more digits we can think about up here, another thing to really do, though, is recognize that at the start of these sections, like the 8, we've got some pretty small digits, and I'm going to just mark a little more in than I usually would to just sort of call attention to the fact that they're fairly limited. And what it even shows to me is that a digit like any of these in the space, like a 4, is never going to be seen by the 6. Because of the values sort of further here obscuring it. And so there's going to be a case where we'll probably need to see a set of values here and actually build all the way to where there's a 9 in this cell. It can't be in this cell for how these clues work. Over in this leftmost box, the 9 is in one of those cells. We still have to get some valid considerations for like the values for these top spaces, and a 6 has to be 1, 2, 3, or 4 in a starting cell, but the 1, 2 pair is already in this row. 3, 4, therefore, is all that remains. A value like a 5 is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so 3, 4, 5 is what's there. But look at this clue of this 3 to the right. It has to see this building, and then see this building, and then see this 9. So this value will always have to be smaller. So it could be a 3 or a 4, but we can't have this be a 3. And given this on the left is also a 3 or 4, this can't be a 4, so this has to be a 5 with a smaller digit to the right and to the left. 3, 4, 3, 4 is a pair with 5. We have 6, 7, 8, but the 8 can't go there. 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, finishing out that group. Now, with this 5 marked in the way it was, a 5 is seen, and then a 6 is seen in one of these cells, and then a 7 is seen in one of these cells, and then the 8, and then the 9 down in this box, and seeing that these are the 9s in those columns. 9 is always there. But notice that in marking these cells in the grid, including the 1, 2, 3, 4 limitation, this 3, 4, we have 6, 7, 8 left over as a pair, and the 8 can only go in the cell, so 6 and 7 are forced in this space with 1, 2, 3, 4, and then with 3, 4, and then smaller values, whatever they are, in the space, including with the 3 to the left, only a 1, 2 marked in. We still need to get some more progress over in these spaces, and so where we've written some of these digits in, let's actually see the next forced eliminations. This 8 has to have another 8 in these spaces. And I think a key thing to see after we do that, this 8 now hides everything behind it. So these cells, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, are the only ones that can be seen by this 6 clue. Recognizing again, there's no way for one of the buildings here, 1, 2, 3, or 4, to be seen when there's also a small value to the right. The normal way this would work is a 4 with like 1, 2, 3 would see this building. So if these are the 5 buildings seen, and they don't include yet the 8, the 6, or 5 for this row, the 8 is on the far right, the 6 is the next building, the 5 is seen, and this is a 1, 2, 3, and a 2, 3, 4 coming up in some way. Marking these in, we actually see that we force a 7 up here, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 as this space. We're going to force a 7 over to this left part of this row, and it looks like it's got to be in here. And we have what looks to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 all left over in the space, but we're going to have to figure out how to get this 6 clue to actually still work out. And thing to note about the 6 clue is this 6 clue can see this building but never sees this building. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is what needs to be seen. The 9 has to now hit at this terminal cell. It couldn't come up to this square above it. And so we get this limitation in the grid. That means this is 3, 4. If these buildings are being seen, normally the escalating series would be 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7 here, and 7, 8. But notice in this cell, the 5 is already in the space, so this is a 4, which is forced. That limits the cells here, so this bottom one is the 4, which puts a 4 over here. The 3 comes back across. We now have this needing to be a 1 and 2, so that these grow up, and we see 6 buildings in this row. Puts the 3 in here, puts 1, 2 up above. This 8 is now a clue that's going to have a 1 or a 2, and then a 2 or a 3 visible, and then a 4. So the hidden building in this whole column is a 1, 2, or 3. A 5 is going to be seen next, and then a 6, and then a 7, and then an 8. So we know for sure, like if our normal Snyder notation, I'd be writing a number on these lines for that either or pair, but just remember these are kind of either or thinking. There's a different thing going on here. This could be 2 and then 1 and then 3, or this could be 1, 2, 3, but we still have a limit where this first space can only be a 4, 5. The next one may be able to be a 5, 6, but it can't be as large as a 7. This now is the first cell that has a lot of potential, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then as we get all the way down to this space, this 8 and this 8, we can't put an 8 in the cell because of the 5 next to it, but we have an 8 in one of these. We're going to come back over to this column just quickly to sort of think about some of the constraints that are in it. One thing for sure is we haven't placed a 2 anywhere in that column yet, and a 2 can't be in front of the cell because it would need to be hiding another building before it sees a 9 in one of these. So the 2 is up here, and that comes over and influences this position, which puts in a 1. We still want to think about what can go in this lower leftmost cell, and one thing to be observing is how, depending on the actual values, there's going to be some constraints coming up these columns for different positions, including what may be forced from some of these considerations. So if, for instance, this is an 8, then this is a 7, which makes this pushing all the clues down, 7, 8, 9. So if this is an 8, we force a 9 there based on how a 7 interacts with the clues in this column, but 8 and 9 would put in another, basically eliminate both the digits that go for this 8, 9 cell. So this largest value of 8 causes issues through this cascade. And so instead, an 8 is going to go in this cell, and this is going to be a 5, 6, 7. We don't know which. But having that marked now limits where the 8 can go in this space to one of these 3 cells. And that works in concert with the fact the 8 is up above and before the 9 in this whole column to say that the 8 is forced for sure to be in this lower cell, the 9 here, the other 9 then coming across. We have to still make the total values for this group work, and now that the 8 is below this 9, this 8 has to have a full increasing series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then 9 with the 8 being the only missing building. This 7 comes over to here and says that the 7 has to be pushed up as the clues go. That actually now means that this is 6, 7, and 5, so we're getting good progress over there. These 7s put a 7 up top. We have 1, 2, and 3 to go in the space, and not yet more than what we've marked in to do that. We've got 2, 3, 2, 3, but 4 is forced in the bottommost cell. We're going to have 5, 6, and then the remaining 2, 3 in the space. Thinking about this 5 clue, it sees the 7, it will see wherever the 8 is, and the 9, those are 3 of the buildings, but it needs to see this and this to get to 5 total, so 2 is before 3. And putting that in, we actually get 5, 6 is the last set here, with 6 below and 5 above, just based on the clues to the left. The last 5 in the puzzles are in these 2 spots, just based on Sudoku rules. The last 6 is here, and then also here. We've got actually a 6, 8, 6, 8 pair, so this is going to be where there's this skyscraper constraint of this 2 is going to have to resolve that. But that 6, 8, 6, 8 pair is forcing 1, 4 to go in these cells. So this is 4, this is 1, this is 2, 3. Completing that box with 1, completing this with an 8. We have 2 and 7 to go here, 7 to the right, 2 over here. We've got 1, 8, 9 to go, but we only see 4 buildings from this clue, so the 8 has to be higher, and the 9 next, and 1 in the bottom is just fine for it. That finishes this out. We've got 2, 3, 4 to go here, 4 down below, 3 and 2, another 2, another 3. We've got 1 and 9 to finish this space. We have 6 and not 6, so we've got 4 and 7 to finish this. The 4 is right above, so this is 7 to the left, 4 to the right. 1 and 3, we've got 3, 1, 1, 9, 9, 7, and we've got to get just 2 buildings seen here, so 8 has to be blocking the 6. And that will finish the grid, and you can check all the other skyscraper clues. We didn't necessarily look at all of them through this all. Like, I don't think we really looked at this 4 very much, or this 4 very much, but those all look good in the grid. So here's the final solution to this challenging skyscrapers puzzle. It was tracking a lot of large clues as in a typical skyscraper form that was forcing some things like Sudoku digits to dodge around. Looked like the pairs of information in the top cells, getting a 1-2 pair, getting a 3-4 pair, forcing a 5, which really eliminates this clue, was a key start. Also eventually figuring out how these 8s work together, that they only hide one building, and so by the bottom where we have like a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 series, there are limitations of these clues, this column, and this column all together. And that last constraint was particularly an 8 not going here and instead going here forced some of the last steps of the puzzle, and was probably the stalling point that for me was tricky to find. There may have been other ways to get through the grid for sure, but sometimes recognizing you have chaining logic is seeing if you can force a negative deduction through forcing the chain in a quick mode. So that's how I went through this solve. So I hope you got some enjoyment from the puzzle and seeing the video, and we'll see you again soon.